Are ultra-processed foods, UPFs, silently sabotaging your health? The truth is, these foods are often packed with poor nutritional quality, contributing to excessive calories and high levels of saturated fats, added sugars, and sodium, salt. This combination, often abbreviated as HFSS, is linked to serious health issues like heart attacks, strokes, obesity, inflammation, type 2 diabetes, and vascular complications. Observational studies have shown that consuming higher amounts of UPFs increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, chronic illnesses, and even mortality. But here's where it gets controversial. Not all UPFs are created equal. Some UPFs, such as certain commercial whole grains, low-fat, low-sugar dairy, and some plant-based items, actually have better nutritional value and can be part of a healthy diet. And this is the part most people miss. The rapid rise in UPF consumption since the 1990s has disrupted traditional dietary patterns, potentially leading to adverse health effects. It's estimated that 70% of grocery store products in the U.S. contain at least one ultra-processed ingredient. According to a CDC report, 55% of calories consumed by people ages 1 and older in the U.S. come from UPFs. Among youth ages 1 through 18, this jumps to nearly 62%, and among adults ages 19 and older, it's 53%. Families with lower incomes consume a higher percentage of UPFs daily, 54.7% for the lowest income group versus 50.4% for the highest income group. UPFs are relatively inexpensive, convenient, and aggressively marketed, particularly toward youth and under-resourced communities, often displacing healthier alternatives. This shift has lowered the overall nutritional quality of typical eating patterns in the U.S. and is misaligned with the American Heart Association's dietary guidance. The new science advisory from the American Heart Association, Ultra-Processed Foods and Their Association with Cardiometabolic Health, Evidence, Gaps, and Opportunities, summarizes current knowledge about UPFs and their impact on cardiometabolic health. It outlines opportunities for research, policy, and regulatory reform to improve dietary intake and overall health. The manuscript, published on August 8 in Circulation, the flagship journal of the American Heart Association, highlights the complex relationship between UPFs and health. We know that eating foods with too much saturated fat, added sugars, and salt is unhealthy, said Maya K. Vadivalu, Ph.D., R.D., FAHA, volunteer chair of the writing group for this science advisory. What we don't know is if certain ingredients or processing techniques make a food unhealthy above and beyond their poor nutritional composition, and if certain additives and processing steps used to make healthier food like commercial whole grain breads have any health impact. The science advisory reinforces current dietary guidelines from the American Heart Association to reduce the intake of most UPFs, especially those high in saturated fat, added sugars, and sodium, and to replace UPF consumption with healthier options like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and lean proteins. But how are ultra-processed foods classified? UPFs are multi-ingredient foods containing additives likely intended to enhance shelf life, appearance, flavor, or texture, widely used in industrial food production and not commonly used in home cooking. Human diets are increasingly including more industrially processed foods, leading to various systems for classifying foods based on processing criteria. The NOVA framework for food classification, the most widely used, is based on the nature, extent, and purpose of the food's industrial food processing. However, the NOVA categorization does not consider the nutritional quality of foods. Certain types of industrial food processing are beneficial for preservation and safety and/or lowering cost, such as techniques that extend shelf life, control microbial growth, mitigate chemical toxicants, preserve functional, nutritional, and sensory taste qualities, and reduce food loss and waste. Efforts to understand UPFs are hindered by differing definitions, limitations in dietary assessment tools, and food composition databases, which often lack detailed information on additives and processing methods. Currently, U.S. manufacturers are not required to disclose processing techniques or cosmetic additive quantities, which contributes to the variability in risk estimates and confusion for consumers. The writing group cautions that an over-reliance on the degree of processing as a proxy for healthfulness of foods could sway the food industry to reduce or remove the markers of ultra-processing from foods that are high in saturated fats, added sugars, and sodium, and promote them as better-for-you alternatives. A meta-analysis of prospective studies cited in the advisory found a dose-response relationship between UPF consumption and cardiovascular events, such as heart attack, transient ischemic attack, and stroke, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and all-cause mortality. High versus low UPF intake was linked to a 25% to 58% higher risk of cardiometabolic outcomes and a 21% to 66% higher risk of mortality. More research is needed to understand the appropriate thresholds for daily consumption of UPFs, what a safe amount is, and the incremental risks of eating more UPFs. Research has also found that there may be underlying mechanisms that affect eating behaviors and obesity for some people, and that UPFs may promote obesity. UPFs frequently contain combinations of ingredients and additives that are uncommon in whole foods to enhance palatability and reduce cost, and these may influence reward-related brain activity. For example, ingredients like artificial flavors may mimic sweetness without sugar, and this disruption in flavor-nutrient relationships often leads to irregular eating habits, resulting in weight gain. Balancing multiple priorities, including the practical need for a nutrient-dense, affordable food supply, current evidence supports the following key research and policy changes to improve public health and reduce risks related to UPFs. Introduce approaches for individuals, food manufacturers, and the retail industry that help shift eating patterns away from UPFs high in saturated fat, added sugars, and sodium toward patterns high in vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, non-tropical liquid plant oils, fish and seafood, low-fat, low-sugar dairy, and, if personally desired, lean poultry and meats. Enact multi-pronged policy and systems change strategies. Example, front-of-package labels, to help reduce intake of HFSS products. Increase research funding to explore critical questions about UPFs. To what extent is it the ultra-processing itself that makes a UPF unhealthy versus the fact that ultra-processed foods tend to have unhealthy ingredients? Most UPFs overlap with HFSS foods that are already targeted for cardiometabolic risk reduction. So a better understanding of the root causes of UPF's link to poor health is fundamental to effective reduction strategies. Enhance ongoing efforts to improve food additive science, including streamlined and efficient evaluation and regulation of food additives. More research is needed to better understand the mechanisms of how UPFs impact health. In the meantime, the association continues to urge people to cut back on the most harmful UPFs that are high in saturated fats, added sugars and sodium, and excessive calories, and instead follow a diet rich in vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, low-fat, low-sugar dairy, and lean proteins like fish, seafood, or poultry for better short and long-term health, said Vatavalu. This science advisory was prepared by the volunteer writing group on behalf of the American Heart Association, Council on Lifestyle and Cardiometabolic Health, the Council on Cardiovascular and Stroke Nursing, the Council on Clinical Cardiology, the Council on Genomic and Precision Medicine, and the Stroke Council. American Heart Association scientific statements and advisories promote greater awareness about cardiovascular diseases and stroke issues and help facilitate informed healthcare decisions. Scientific statements outline what is currently known about a topic and what areas need additional research. While scientific statements inform the development of guidelines, they do not make treatment recommendations. American Heart Association guidelines provide the association's official clinical practice recommendations. So what do you think? Are ultra-processed foods as harmful as they seem? Or is there more to the story? Share your thoughts in the comments below.